where I'm actually giving away a whole house at the conference in
I
Atlanta.
saw that. I was all up on your site, girl. I
Yes,
was like
yes,
about to give
yep,
away a whole house.
a whole house. Yes,
Oh my
at the
gosh, that
conference.
is so
So y'all,
cool.
y'all go ahead and come. It's gonna be fun.
I know. I
And,
was like,
and it's great because when you think about your real estate, your standard real estate conference, it's just like gray walls, it's bland, it's boring. It's like,
mm,
no, we're gonna take the best of our black and brown cultures, we're gonna merge
right.
that with real estate, and we're gonna have a really amazing time.
You're listening to Real Estate Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Sarah Hilton, and this is your weekly live coffee date with the who's who from every corner of the real estate industry. Hey, Erika, welcome to Real Estate Coffee Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Are you up? Starbucks.
This
It's
was
like,
not even planned, huh?
it's today half off day. I think we're gonna
No, it needs
do.
to be because
Oh,
how much money I spend with them.
but listen, whenever I go for the half off day and then I go again, and I'm like, why am I spending $6.50 for a coffee? And
Yes.
then your kids want it too. So like just a quick drive is like $20 through the drive-through window. I'm
Yes.
like, this ain't
Yeah.
fun anymore. This used to
No.
be my treat, and it's not fun.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So Erica, I'm super excited to have you on. Like I was reading your bio the other day. These things kind of just come in and my girl handles them for me. And so I was reading your bio. I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how long
Mhm.
you've been in the real estate world and all that stuff.
Yes. Oh man. So I am deep into the real estate world. I do lots of different things in real estate. I've been in real estate for about, I guess, uh 9, 10 years as an agent and investor. But
Mm.
I'll get into that in a little bit. So my name is Erika Brown. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a mom of 3 boys. I homeschool as well as also run a 7-figure company. I'm a founder of a community called, I know I just got it like,
No, I love it. I
um,
feel like a bum, but go ahead.
yes. So I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I'm the founder of a community called Owning It and Living It community, where I work with women and Black and Brown investors on how to build wealth. Um, and I am a co-founder of a brokerage called Boast in Atlanta. And so we have right now a little bit over 200 agents, and we're a purpose-driven real estate brokerage here in Georgia. I am also within Boast, I have my own team of agents called Strive Team. Where I have a bunch of agents. We're like super diverse. We're diverse in our and how we help our clients as well. We're really amazing. And what else? I do lots. I feel like I'm an angel investor. I own a bunch of different properties between Georgia and Texas. And I really, really love also sharing information. And specifically, I have a podcast called Wealth Within Reach, where I share a ton of information about real estate and life. And I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, girl, don't. I think that's enough. I think you should take a nap.
No.
That's a
No.
lot. Okay, so I'm like I said when I was looking through your stuff, I think we share a lot of like the same passions.
Yeah.
I'm not I want to be an investor and stuff. I need to go to one of your summit things, but
Yes.
um like specifically when it comes, like I sit on the board for an organization called NAREP, the Charlotte chapter, where we talk
Nice.
about like advancing Hispanic homeownership, which is building wealth in our communities.
Mhm.
And because it is something that we like, when I was reading some data, some report, Hispanics are actually, of all the minorities, at the very bottom of the
Mhm.
list as far as knowledge of
Mhm.
wealth building.
Mhm.
And the crazy story about, I'm just about to send my first kid off to college, and I was talking to him the other day, and we were talking about, paying for it and all that stuff. And I was like, listen, there's this thing called the 529 plan that I just found out existed
Yeah.
like a couple of years ago. I was like, so
Yeah.
some of these people, they've been saving since their kids were born. And I
Yep.
was like, but you don't know what you don't
Don't
know.
know what you don't
Right.
know. Exactly.
Uh,
That's why I
so
said get in the room. Yep.
yes. Okay. That's why people like you, like what you're doing to me is so vital. Like I'm so passionate about it because it's just when you see the wealth disparities, it's like, it's not because of lack of work ethic or anything
Nope.
like that. It's just people don't know. And a
Yes.
lot of us are just kind of like, I've done way better than my parents have done.
Yep.
But I was telling my son, it was just clawing, figuring out things a little
Yeah.
bit at a time.
Yes.
So I'm so excited to talk to you about this. Okay, but before we get into a little bit, so what were you always in the real estate world? Like,
Mm.
how did you get into this life?
No, I used to be in banking, and so I started in banking in 2008, which was the worst time to start in
Oh
banking.
Lord.
And I used to be a bank manager. I went from being a banker to a bank manager. I thought that I was going to be with the company until I turned 65 and I was going to retire like everybody else, like my parents
Right.
did.
Right.
And so I learned about real estate from my clients. I had a very wealthy branch, and I'm just a naturally kind of curious person. So I'm always like asking questions and how do you do this and how do you have this money and all this kind of
Yep.
stuff. And I remember there was one specific client I had, and he came in and he would just like, he would just not be in a rush. Like every time I go somewhere, I'm in a rush, right? I'm sure you are too. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and so
Yeah.
he would just come in and just casually sit down and talk to us. And I was just like, and of course you can see the person's bank account when they're in the bank.
Right.
And I'm just like, what do you do for a living?
Right.
And he was like, he was like, well, I own this land around the corner and I rented it out to Walgreens. And,
Oh
they
my
built a building and they take care of all the maintenance and the taxes. And they pay me, 20 something thousand dollars a month. And I just live off of that. And I was like, what? Like,
God.
just like you mentioned, we don't like our communities work really hard. We know how to make money. We
Right.
just don't know how to build wealth. Like you cannot save your
Exactly.
way to build
Right.
wealth. And we think
Right.
so. And so
Yep.
just listening to those stories and asking questions, I was like, look, I'm missing something. Let me figure it out. And so I
Right.
started learning.
Oh, that I love that. And you hit the nail on the head with that, because I remember my grandmother, she used to, she came to New York from Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
8, I mean, it's actually miraculous because I'm stressed out with 3 kids. She had 8, and
Yeah,
she somehow saved her money, bought a
a
house.
boss, a boss.
Yes, and just strip was, and, like, every time you went over to her house, she'd be like, "Sarita, I got something for you," and it was, like, $20 she pulled out from
Love.
some random spot. So she always
Yeah.
did well at saving,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's like, wealth doesn't come from just putting your money under your mattress. So
Nope.
I love that you ask questions though, because it takes a certain mind to be like, "All right, let me investigate," and now you moved into a place where you started applying it to your own life. So how did you start making that transition? Where did you start?
Yes, that's a great question. So I okay, so then I knew like I want to do something in real estate. I'm not really sure how and why, but let me just get my real estate license. Let me, I had already helped like a group of people move to my neighborhood, but I passed them off to another realtor. And so I
Right.
just started counting up that commission and I was like, that's $100,000. I was like, okay, I want to invest, but let me at least just start getting around it more. Let me get my license. And I knew that I was going to grow from there, but I just used that as my starting point. So I
Right.
got my license while I was still a bank manager. And I was trying to side hustle and do both, and I just couldn't. So I ended up like going full time into working my new business as a real estate agent. And that fall, we bought our first investment property. And so we bought our first investment property just based off of needing some passive income to help. Because I was making almost 6 figures in my bank job. So
Right.
it's like,
Right.
okay, when you're starting something new, you really don't know how it's going to go out. So can I at least make $2,000 a month on this
Right.
Airbnb property? And that will at least kind of give us some cushion as I'm trying to build this business. And then that's how I got started.
Right. Okay. Oh my gosh. So so when you started, I guess, like, I think people's mindset, I'm going totally off.
It's
I'm going
fine.
totally off our questions, but I don't care because it's just interesting as you talk. Okay, so when you were starting, you know, what I've seen in the real estate world, and to be honest, one of the things that I struggle with as, when I first got licensed was same thing. I gave up a really good job.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I left because they were moving and different reasons or whatever. But just it was so hard because I felt like every commission almost like went to feed like my
Yes.
family, you know what I mean? So, and again, you don't know. Well, I didn't know like how to build a business. I don't know how much I should
Right.
reinvest back in the business. I don't know anyone that's business owner. So like
Yeah.
transitioning, I guess, from full time to that, what were some of, the struggles you had with building the business, and how did
Yeah.
you, I guess you kept yourself afloat with the Airbnb, but what were some of
Yeah.
the challenges you faced?
Yeah, I mean, some of the challenges was just kind of like, lack of knowledge, lack of knowledge around being an agent. Like, I remember
Right.
one time, like, I told someone, I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I can do it for you. And then I went back to my broker and I was like, how do I do that? And then she's like, we don't do this. And I was like, so so then it's really trying to like slow down and then learn, and because I'm very much like I learn through experience. And
Right, me
so
too.
really having to recognize, okay, Erica, you can't learn everything through experience. Like you have to invest in like going to workshops and conferences. So I started doing that really early on, which was really
That's
interesting.
good. Right.
I started attending these like it was some type of like creative co-working space used to throw these like events where they started teaching you kind of like business 101.
Oh,
And
that's
so I
cool.
think that's also what kind of set me apart as an agent, is that I didn't know a lot of agents that were learning about business. I was because a lot of if you learn about business, a lot of the skills you learn as a business owner transfer to being a real estate agent. And
Right.
so I started learning about business while I was learning to be a real estate agent. And in my brain, I just transferred this to real estate life, like lead generation. And because you mentioned like the struggle between commissions, I would just work with anybody. I would just work
Yeah.
with everybody. And that's how I was able to like sell 35 houses in 1 year. My first year is because I said yes to everybody. And it was a big sacrifice for my family. I
Right.
worked a lot.
Yeah.
In year 2, I started a team. I brought on an agent, and my broker was like, "Girl, you don't even know what you're doing. How you gonna bring somebody else?"
Like,
But
I
I had
just
a
need some
vision,
time.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I would say those were some of the challenges, and then that's kinda how I overcame them.
Well, and I love what you said about that because I've said it on this podcast before, but one of the things I noticed now being in, I mean, I've only been in real estate 5 or 6 years or so, but just being here, and I talk to a lot of real estate agents now, is so many agents build a job, not a
Mm,
business. Right. And
mm,
and I've seen people that have been in this 20 years, and I'm like, yo, you're still running around. I mean, hey, if you want to be in your 60s showing houses and because you love it, fine.
yes,
But I've seen so many people still on that roller coaster 30
yes.
years into the business. And I'm
No,
like, no, you
yeah.
see, I'm not trying to be fist fighting with the super lock when I'm 60. You know,
No.
it's not happening. And I think that's like huge. So that's why I love like what you've done. I think it's a huge missing piece of
Yeah.
real estate because if you think about it, like I've met and I'm sure obviously you have and you are one,
Mhm.
so many people who've been in the real estate world, started there as an agent, and then have built multi-million dollar portfolios because they didn't they use their commission strategically and all that
Yeah.
instead of just let me buy my daughter some extra Starbucks today,
Yes.
you know?
And
Um,
I actually use it as motivation. So
yeah,
after I would have enough, clients and kind of things in the pipeline to take care of the homes, my personal home. But
yeah,
then if I knew I wanted to buy another property, I figured out how much I needed and I leveraged that as motivation to get more business. And so
yes,
I think really, like you said, not looking at it like a job and just, oh, I made $5,000 this month. Ooh. Like,
yeah.
no, like push yourself.
Right, and you weren't necessarily what you said is the exact way I would, kinda tell my husband I looked at it was like, he's very motivated by money as
Yeah.
far as just like what comes into the bank.
Yeah.
I'm more motivated, like, what can that money do? Okay, a cruise for us all is gonna cost us whatever, $8,000, right? Oh,
Yes.
I just have to sell one $300,000 house for that. Okay. Like,
Yes.
so I get
Yes.
motivated by like what the money can do
Ye
versus just piling up the money in the bank.
yes. That's good.
So
I love
And
that.
that's like, I think women, like, we connect emotionally to stuff.
Mhm.
So, okay. So, what were, I guess, like, the mindset shifts? Like, did you come out of practicing brokerage into what you're doing now, and how did that start?
Did I come out? Can you repeat the question one more
Sorry,
time?
did you, like, leave brokerage activities, like, as an agent to start doing what you're doing, or are
Oh,
you doing all
yes.
of it?
So there was a period of time, I believe it was like 2021 or 2020.
Mm,
2020, I believe, was my last year of being like a full-time agent. And
right.
even before the pandemic, I just wanted to be able to own my own time. And
Yeah.
as an agent, you are on your client's time. And I was just in the place where it's like, I want to own my own time. I'm building this team, I'm building this business. How can I empower them to service our clients, but then still be able to kind of pursue these other things that I'm thinking about doing? I was really heavy into investing by then. And I was having so many friends like ask me, like, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? And so 2021, I just started sharing information online of everything I was already doing. And now I know it's like, oh wow, there's a whole online world that I didn't even know about.
Yes.
And then
Then the algorithm starts giving you
yes,
everyone else.
it's funny
Love
because I was a new kid on the block, and then the people were like, "Oh, wait, okay, you own a couple properties?" And I was like, "No, actually, I've been doing this. I just haven't been online." And
Right.
so then I founded the Owning and Living It community. And so I started basically, I went from being an agent. I was just kind of always kind of evolved. So I started out
Yeah.
just doing everything as an agent, saying yes to everything. And then I became primarily a listing agent. And then I would, send all my buyer clients to another agent on my team. And then now I'm just a team lead, and I work primarily in my coaching business, owning and living in community. And the only real estate transaction I do now are my own.
Right.
So yeah, and I just support my team and help them, get more business and leads and things like that.
Right. Which is still a big job and
For sure.
responsibility, because you almost
Yeah.
feel like I gotta keep food on the table for you
Yes.
guys,
Yeah.
a little bit. Okay. So, girl, let me tell you, like, well, before we get, because I'm just so curious, it's so not real estate related, but I'm
Yes.
just trying to figure out how you are a freaking boss and still homeschool 3 kids. But I'm gonna get into that. But okay, so own it and live it community. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, I know it was
Yeah.
an online thing. How did you start it? What do you do? Tell me
Yes.
tell me everything.
We do so many fun things. I started in 2021, in fall of 2021, after just sharing information online, after helping a bunch of my friends begin investing in real estate, kind of like we were talking about before. A lot of my friends were like the first generation to like build wealth. They bought their first houses, and then as we kept buying houses, I would just kind of share with them what we're doing. They're like, "Oh my gosh, can you help me too?" And then I started helping them, and then it got to the point where I had too many people trying to get me to help them at the same time. So just
Right.
based on efficiency, I
Yeah,
was like, let
scaling.
me
Yeah.
let me do this course or like
Mhm.
coaching. Let me do this group program. And I just opened it up to the world, and it just grew so much. So basically, I believe in owning it. I believe in owning assets in general. Like I have clients who own landscaping companies, own like various businesses,
Yeah.
and I have a landscaping company too, which is a whole other thing. But
Oh, I love it.
um, so I believe in owning it, owning assets, and I also believe in living it. I don't necessarily subscribe to the thought process to own it, hoard it, and then when you get old, then enjoy it. Like, no, how can we own it and live it?
Right.
How can we own it
I
and then
love
live
that.
at the same time?
Yeah.
And so we have a really amazing community where I have various programs. Whether I have a group coaching program, which is like primarily my mentorship, where I teach people how to invest, kind of like the beginning. Like people are like, okay, I don't really know where to go. That's the best place to go to start to
Right.
learn and to just get information and begin connecting with the different strategies. I have a mastermind where we work together. These are the investors who are like, okay, I get it. I get the basics. I want to buy multiple properties a year, and I want to do it, within a group of other people, and we go on retreats and we do all these things. And
Sure.
then I have my conference that I'm hosting for the first time in November, where I'm actually giving away a whole house at the conference in
I
Atlanta.
saw that. I was all up on your site, girl. I
Yes,
was like
yes,
about to give
yep,
away a whole house.
a whole house. Yes,
Oh my
at the
gosh, that
conference.
is so
So y'all,
cool.
y'all go ahead and come. It's gonna be fun.
I know.
And,
It's like,
and it's great because when you think about your real estate, your standard real estate conference, it's just like gray walls, it's bland, it's boring. It's like, no, we're gonna take the best of our Black and brown cultures, we're gonna merge
right,
that with real estate, and we're gonna have a really amazing time. And
right.
so yeah, we have like over 22 diverse speakers from all over that are like the best and the best in the business, and we're gonna learn and have fun for 3 days
I
in
love
Atlanta.
that. And it's easier to do well, like it's not easier, I'm sure all these women can do it on their own, but
Yeah.
it's more enjoyable
Yes.
to do things together as a group
Yes.
because it's also like the camaraderie, but also sharing the ideas. Hey, what's working for you on this? What's working for this? Like
Yes.
me in a group is so much better than me on my own.
Yes.
Any
Same.
day, any day of the week. You know what I mean? Because especially when it's like you have shared values and
Yes. Yes.
backgrounds and all
You don't
that
have to
stuff.
explain yourself. You don't have to say,
Right.
"Oh, why do you want to do this for your mom?" or "Why do you want to do this?" And you
Right.
don't have to do it, or you don't have to feel like being underestimated. Like, "Oh, you have this." Like, this is not the place where you'll have to deal with that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love it so much. Okay. So you went from 0, I think, to 38 doors, right?
Yes.
Which is
Mm-hmm.
nuts. So what strategies did you use to scale
Mm-hmm.
that fast and to
Yes.
kind of build that up?
Yes, it was like over 5 years. The first few years were slow because I didn't really have the knowledge. I didn't, have a mentor or anything like that. So the first few years were just mainly we bought our first house and we house hacked. So we
Yeah.
rented out a basement in our house and we made money there. And
Mhm.
then after that, the first 3 houses were like running and selling a bunch of houses and then putting 20% down and run. And, we kept doing that, and then I was like, okay, I'm missing something. And I called up a friend and I was like, how are y'all buying houses so fast? Just tell me.
Yeah.
And he connected me with a small bank, local bank, that then I was able to get a line of credit. And then from that line of credit, I got like access to I was able to use my equity to get access to like $1 million of equity
Yeah.
uh, on the line of credit. And then we bought like 7 properties the next year. So between utilizing line of credits, hard money loans, things like that, being able to like learn how to use them and how they work.
Yeah.
We were able to buy like 7 8 properties after that. And then multifamily. I invest in multifamily properties because
Okay.
it's easier to increase and scale faster by
Right.
buying, 20 units versus just 1 unit a year.
So are you managing them all yourself too, or do you because that sounds like
I used to
oh yeah, I was
until
gonna say,
last year, and then I was
and
like,
I
I
know
don't want to
you're
do this anymore.
freaking superwoman over here. Okay.
Yeah, I used to, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm not doing as good of a job as someone else could.
That's a
So
lot. Right,
I had a
right.
property management company. I had a Airbnb management company. Like I said, I have a landscaping company that my husband
Nice.
runs.
Yeah.
And so that's also kind of like been created over the years. But so now I hired a property management company to manage all of the properties. So now
Okay,
you
gotcha.
just manage the manager.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
Because I
have
mean, you
a
can
team.
forget being difficult, but you can
Yeah.
also use that time to scale your business even
Yes.
more.
Yes.
So, okay, and I love what you said about the equity. So these are probably all the things that you teach in your courses and stuff
Yes.
because again, you don't know what you don't know. I bought my first townhome here. I moved to Charlotte from New York. So I
Hmm.
saw how cheap the houses here. And I remember a bunch of people moving to Atlanta at the time too.
Yep.
And you're like, what? I got a 4-bedroom townhome for cheaper than what my fourth floor walk up was in New York, like
Yep.
where I could see the bedroom from my kitchen because everything was just like in one line.
Yep.
But I had that house for 10 years. I went to go sell it, and I had a bunch of equity. I went to go buy a new house. I had a bunch of equity. I didn't know at the time I wasn't in real estate. Like I
Mhm.
could have used that equity to invest in something else. I could have held on to the house. Girl,
Yeah.
when I tell you my mortgage was like $700.
Woo.
Yes.
Woo. That's
And
cheap.
now those houses are going, I mean, I'm sorry, they're renting for like 2,400. And this
Yep.
was only maybe 7 years ago.
Yep.
And it just, now that I'm on the real estate side, like it just makes me sick.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So people have all this equity, people that are locked into these interest rates,
Low
realtors,
rates. Yep.
right? You're locked in. Okay, fine. Maybe your buyers, or maybe you yourself as an agent,
Yeah.
can't work out in your mind or make sense of selling when you have a 2 point something percent interest rate. Fine. But with this equity, you can
Yeah.
go and invest. You can talk to your small bank in your town and
Yes.
tap into all this money that you may not have even know existed.
Yes. And even I have a lot of clients that are in that same situation. And if they want to move, they don't want to stay where they are. We call it the step up buyer. So
Right.
you can basically keep your house, get an equity loan, and just be able to use 5% of the equity loan to buy your new house. And then
Yeah.
you keep your current house and turn it into a rental.
Yeah.
And then your rental pays all the expenses plus the payment on the equity loan. So we call that the step up strategy.
Oh, I love that. And that's what differentiates people like you from like average
Yes.
realtors, right? Because, again, you learn that when you're in the real estate where like there are real estate agents and then there are like advisors that can
Yes.
actually help you build wealth and give you options and strategies. So, so cool. Okay. So well, let's talk about your homeschooling. Question number one, how the hell do you
I know. So
Well, I just say what made you get into homeschooling? Because I've seen this come up in other real estate agents group. What made you get into there, and how the hell do you just keep
like how does this
everything
work?
going at the same time?
I know. It is a day-to-day, it's a day-to-day grind. But we started homeschooling with my middle son in the third grade because basically he just didn't respond to school the way everyone else did, you know.
Right.
He began being labeled, he was being bullied, and so we were like, okay, we have to figure
Oh,
out
that's
something.
it. I'm about to fight because
Yep, exactly, exactly. And so
oh,
we actually got him tested because we were like, okay, maybe he has ADHD or something like that because we don't want to
mm,
keep punishing him because he's getting in trouble. And
right,
then
right.
the psychologist said, well, actually, your son doesn't have any of those things. He just has severe anxiety, specifically around school. And we were
Oh,
like, well,
oh,
because I was always that I would never homeschool. I would, that was me
yeah,
until
right,
your
right,
kid, needs you, and then you figure it out.
right,
And so then we thought about private school and these other kind of options, but we just could not find the best option. So then
right.
we started homeschooling, and we've been on a various journeys through homeschooling, classical and traditional homeschool, and we landed in unschooling.
And
And specifically, unschooling is we're project-based learners, so we don't necessarily operate from a certain curriculum.
right,
My kids are involved in the business. They are we learn by doing, and so naturally, because we're entrepreneurs, we've just been able to teach them through getting them involved in our business, and now they have their own businesses too. And
right.
so yeah, that's how we do school. And I have a team. So I have certain days where I don't work, and those are days that are dedicated to like more of our like structured homeschool environment. And then we have other days where they are just kind of with my husband and I, and yeah, and so it works out well for us.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was about to say before everyone gets their freaking panties in a bunch. Erica told me she can record Monday because she was homeschooling her kids. So don't worry, they are well taken care of and educated.
Yes, yes, they are. When you meet them, you'll be like, oh wow, you speak very
Yes.
well.
Yeah, and it's like anything, you know what I mean? I mean, I too, I'll admit, had a thing of like like a negative perception of homeschoolers, but I think that's because when I first moved here, there was like church environments where they homeschool more for like religious reasons,
Yes.
and then
That's
their
different.
kids were like, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, get that child needs to learn 1 + 1. Okay. And
Yes.
so,
There
but
are
when my
various,
yes,
yes,
they're so it's like anything, they're all over the board, just the way, and it's just what you said, experiences in school are
yes.
all over the board. What my sister started homeschooling hers during the pandemic, and it really did change my like mindset because she was really into like they learned a lot. They did a lot of like what you said, but they did learn a lot. And
Yeah.
and people's experiences, like my older two, they're 16 and 18. Listen, girl, I'm gonna tell you, I got a little cocky because they never had problems, never had behavior problems. My son, he kind of hobbled his way out of high school at the end, but he's going to
Yeah.
college. He'll be fine. But
Yeah.
you get a little cocky when the other, you're like, well, why is your kid having a hard time in school? But
Yes.
I have a 7-year-old. Girl, he is wild. We put him in kindergarten. We basically put him in kindergarten twice.
Yeah.
And he got in more trouble in kindergarten than
Yeah.
my 18-year-old has in his entire education career. And the school, he wears me out. And
Yeah.
and
The
my husband
school,
is like,
the traditional school environment is not for every kid at all. It's not.
it's really not.
And a big part of the day is behavior management. So the thing is, when
Yeah.
you homeschool, we can homeschool really well for 3 hours and then we're done, because
Yes.
most of the day is just keeping it, behavior management piece. We don't have that problem.
Right. And the thing of like right now he's in a school where it's like a classical style education.
Oh, yeah.
And I've noticed, like, luckily that was only kindergarten, but I'm like, he starts first grade in 2 weeks and I'm already like, oh my God, I don't know how this is gonna work. Because it's also, I think, like one of my friends made a good point. He's like, love it or not, like education is really built for girls. Like
Mm,
you have a lot
yeah.
a heavy uh, uh like base of female teachers,
Yeah.
and then so they don't know how boys operate,
Right.
and then so everything is like sit still, put your hands out there.
Yeah.
And my son is not
A
a
high
sit
energy.
still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't even get him to sit still at the dinner table. He's just like all over the
Exactly.
place.
And that's okay. Like, that's not
Yes.
a bad thing. And what I would say, like my son, he when he used to go to school, because the school looked at high energy as a bad thing, looked at asking questions as a bad thing, that
Right.
actually affected his confidence. And then when we
Yeah.
started homeschooling and we started focusing on his strengths and we started like learning based on his strengths, then his confidence now is completely different.
Um,
And because he wasn't, school has a way of like pulling out the curiosity and really like, make pushing
hammering
people
in.
to conform into the system
Right.
that they need to operate in. And when you don't have that, your kids can be completely different. So
Right. And it is more meant for like a 9 to 5 mindset. I
yes,
I
employee.
felt right.
Yes.
It's like I felt good. My oldest, he's going to college in the fall, like I said. So he's going to their business school, but they have a school within the
That's
business
a
school
big
called
deal though.
I know.
Congratulations.
I didn't get to go to college, so I'm a little bit extra mom. I have all the signs outside.
Yes.
But um the school is going to they obviously he's going to their business school, but within the business school they have another school called the Miller School of Entrepreneurship. And
Mm.
he's always been super into, like, he used to ask me for school supplies for Christmas. Like he
Oh,
used
I
to
love
order
that.
business cards when he was little.
Oh,
So
that's so
I
good.
always knew he would do this stuff, but it's funny, like when you tell people, like, "Oh yeah, he's majoring in entrepreneurship," and they're like, "Why would you go to school for entrepreneurship?" Right?
Yeah.
And so when we went to their orientation, so I'll admit I was a little bit like, "Is this dumb?" But
Yeah.
I really, for me, wanted him to have a degree, something. I know it's
Yes.
not necessary. I don't mind, but um, when we went to his open house,
Mhm.
they were or the orientation, the people from the entrepreneurship school were there, and they were talking about, first of all the like very wealthy entrepreneurs that come, and all the networking they're going to make, everything they're going to
Yeah.
learn, and the learning actual business. Um,
Yes.
but also the one thing that made me feel better is he was like, most entrepreneurs don't do great in school because they're not
Yeah.
there for like, let me get 100 on my test. He was like, they're very career minded. It made me feel better because he's so smart, like naturally, but he like in high school he was just like checked out.
Yeah.
But he started like a detailing business. He was really
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
He's going to be
So
engaged in this because he's going to be able to apply it in the various, ventures that he's working on. I was the same way. I barely graduated high school. Like I like rolled out like I think geometry. I like almost didn't pass because I was just like, what is the
right.
point? I'm never going to use this ever in my life. Why am I doing
Exactly.
this?
Exactly. They were sending me notes towards the end, like, if your child isn't turning his math assignments, he's not going to graduate. And I'm like, listen, can you just? But it did. It made me feel better, and it made me feel better about the school choice he made and the program,
Yeah.
and because I'm like, all right, these people. Exactly like you said, they're going to understand that mind and they
Yes.
build their curriculum to that that type of brain.
Mhm.
He'll still have to take his basics and stuff, but he was a lot more excited. I was a lot more excited because it's just a different type of kid,
Yeah.
So
Which is, I love it
I,
so much. That's so good.
yeah, he's so cute. He gets
Great
my
job,
voice.
Mom. Great job.
We made it. Okay, so for agents like
Mhm.
me, but people also listening, because I do definitely want to get into this world.
Mhm.
Um, so for people like that, like where people just, I guess, just like in these real estate streets, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
what are some practical steps they can take? Which number one, I'm going to tell you, go look her up and join her course because you will get excited when you look at her website.
Yes.
But what are some practical steps that they can and should take to kind of just get started, just their
Yeah.
first investment or whatever?
Yes, I would say, okay, so first it's about mindset. It's interesting in my program, I don't start with just giving you a bunch of information. I start in like preparing your mind to think like an investor. Like you said, because a lot of us, when we went to public school, we have learned that A plus B equals C. And that's not the case with
Right.
business and real estate investing. So I actually would recommend you read this one book that will probably change your life. And if someone's listening and you've read it when you were younger, read it again. Because once you get in this real estate mindset, you'll see it from a different point of view. So I would say read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
I don't subscribe to his politics, but he is
I don't.
the book is a
Listen,
classic and it
right.
is
Right.
phenomenal. Like from a mindset, like thinking like an investor, thinking getting ready to build wealth. It is a countercultural book that everyone should read at least every 5 years. So I would say to read
Right.
that.
I love that. Okay.
um, yes, so read that, and then number two, I would say probably the best way that you can really, because you can take a course, you can take a workshop, but to me, what was the most transformational for me was to be able to get in the room to see and meet and ask questions to other people that were doing it while learning the information. So I would encourage you to, whether it's joining your local, we call it RIA or real estate investing network. So most major cities have these like free networking events where they can just
Right.
go and meet other investors and begin learning. So I would suggest that. And then if you're like, okay, I want to keep going, then find a real estate conference that works for you. Come to the Owning and Living experience. We would love to
Yeah.
have you. But really getting in the room and learning and also seeing people that does it, it really does like fast track you to your next step, because with real estate there's like so many different strategies, but what happens is once you start hearing people's stories and people's journeys, you can connect to say, okay, this option works best for me. You may say, okay, I love hospitality, I really love like serving people, I want to go the Airbnb investing route. And so like being able to have access to various people's and stories helps you to figure out where your lane is, and then you can just kind of you can go from there. So that's
Oh
my
my gosh. I love that where you said like there's something different for everyone because you said about the house hacking before. And listen, I know people who are doing it, but my New York blood dies really hard. And I'm like, you're not
Yes. There's so many
you are
different Yes.
So many different ways. Yeah. And okay, one more question for you, I guess, because I think the common, I'll tell you for myself, and I'm working on my mindset. I
Mhm.
really am as I get older. But I think the common objection would be, I need $40,000. Where am I going to get $40,000 from? Right. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah,
Would
I
you
would
say,
say one is not true.
yeah,
There are lots of myths that you need a lot of money to invest, that you need 20% down, and it's not true. What happens is this people focus on the what they think they need, and what they should be focusing on is the who. Who has done it? Who has done it that didn't come from a lot of money? And how can I get in a space with them, whether it's a course or whatever, to where I can figure out what I need to do in order to do it first. Because I can tell you 5 ways right now
yeah,
does not require 20% down, you know?
yes, yeah,
You can leverage your equity. You can turn your primary home into a rental property. You could do a vacation home loan. Like there's so many different ways. But if
yeah,
you are trying to figure out how to invest based on your limited knowledge, you are fully holding yourself back. You
yes,
have to be okay with asking a question. Sometimes we want to, and I think it's because we've conditioned with our society. Sometimes
right,
we are afraid to ask questions. And we're
yeah,
afraid. Why are we afraid to ask questions? We're afraid to ask questions because we don't want to look like we don't know. And
yes. I don't want to look like the broke,
yeah,
like, you're surrounded by, I'm in my 40s, my husband's in his 40s. You're surrounded by people who you feel like, well,
they got it all together.
they've really built it, and we have a house and that's it.
Yes,
So you do get kind of a, like, I don't know. I feel
yes.
I'm like insecure sometimes over that,
No, it's real, and I think our society kind of, especially minorities, they like
Mhm.
we already are trying to do so, trying to do so much, and society kind of expects us to be perfect and to do everything right, and so sometimes it can be hard to like muster up to ask a question to admit that I don't know how to do this. But what I
Right.
would say is that one, that's the part of the mindset with the reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it,
Mhm.
it talks about like this value of asking questions and being curious and self-education. And Robert talks about how he attended these seminars when he first started. Like that's the value of like reorganizing your mind to do that, because nobody has it all together. And I
Yeah.
will still, if I don't know something, I'm asking a question. Okay.
Right. Right. And everyone starts somewhere. So there was a
Yes.
time when Erica didn't have any investment properties,
Yes.
and you just have to get past
Yes.
that one,
And
learn.
it's important to be in a safe environment. That's why
Right.
whether it's like a retreat, like I love facilitating these safe environments where people feel like I'm comfortable enough to ask questions. I'm comfortable enough to
Right.
say, hey, I have $20,000. Can I do something with this? And I'm like, sure, yes. Let me ask you a couple questions to like hear what's important to you. And let me point you to a market where you can like that's why it's important to like connect with someone who you feel good and who you feel safe with, because yeah, like you really could have lots of options, but just the fear of like being able to ask that question could be holding you back.
Right. And on the flip side of that too, I think sometimes people just maybe don't want to ask the question in person, so they go off Googling it, and
Or
then they,
Facebook group. Oh,
yes, oh my God. And then they find, let's say they find you, but then they find, 20 other people. And I
yeah,
found this with like business coaching type of stuff. And I'm like, yo, I'm getting like 32 emails in my inbox, and one person saying doing this, and one person saying doing this. And
yes,
sometimes there's no information, and sometimes the information becomes paralyzing. Like,
yes,
I've had to tell myself, like, I literally went through my inbox a couple months ago and freaking unsubscribed from
yes,
people with good stuff, but I was like, who do I vibe with, right? Like,
yes,
who do I feel like talks like me, has the same passions? Like, you just connect with certain people, and
yes, you do.
um, yeah. So I think that's
That's good.
another thing too, is just like find someone you really like, you admire, you vibe with, for lack of a better word, and stick with them. Just
That's
go,
so good. That's a
yeah,
great point, because
because
the information overload, and then you're not
yes.
doing nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly because you'll be like, oh, like on my side, I'll be like, oh, this person said I need to invest 30% in my business. Oh, this one said that I should invest 25. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
It can be a
you're
lot.
losing it, which is the best one. So, okay, you are amazing. Okay, so where will Erika be in 10 years?
Ooh. Honestly, you're gonna be surprised, but I'll probably be on like a little small farm,
That's my
living my
worst
life with
nightmare.
an RV, like following my kids around whatever they're doing, and then spending summers in Europe. Okay, that's probably what I
Oh,
would do. But
I
I'll still
love
have
it.
my podcast. I'll
I'll
have my
take that
podcast.
exact life. Oh, okay, you
Yeah.
got the podcast.
And
Oh,
I may work with like a small group of people. That's probably
yeah,
all I would do is podcast
yes,
because I really enjoy, sharing information. And then working with
right.
a small group of people, that's probably what I
Oh,
would
I love it.
fully
I mean,
living
I'll
my life.
take that, but I can't. I will freak out if I live on a farm. I'm scared of nature. So unless it's like the beach, but grass, like walking through grass. We were at my son was practicing baseball the other day, and my husband's looking at me like, "Oh my god, a freaking city slicker over here," because I had sandals. I'm like, I didn't know you were going through the grass. I'm standing in grass for half an hour, and I got bit by some kind of spider. My ankle's all swollen. I'm
Oh
like, see,
no.
that's how I don't mess around with nature. Just, just like I want to live dream world, live in like a city like one of those luxury apartment buildings in the
Oh, I
city,
like it.
walk
Okay.
downstairs to the coffee shop,
Yeah.
like that's my whole
Yes.
vibe. But I'll take summers in Europe any day of the week. So
Oh yeah. Summers
oh
in
my gosh,
Europe.
that's so exciting. Okay, so I know everyone wants to know where to find you. I know first of all, look up her podcast, Wealth Within Reach. I actually just downloaded it yesterday, start listening.
Yay.
Love it. And then you can follow Erika on Instagram at Erika with a K, Erika Brown Investor. But tell
Mhm.
us where else they could find out about your courses. And
Yes.
I know the conference is coming up in
November.
November. Okay.
Yes.
So where can they find out about all that stuff?
Yeah, so you can find out about all the things I'm doing, blogs, I mean, everything at www.owningitandlivingit.com. Lots of resources. I actually have on the website, I have a resource library that has a ton of free workshops and downloads and things that you can actually like do today to help you get started learning. Owningitandlivingit.com.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Go follow her. I'm gonna go grab some stuff. And thank you for
Yes.
not saying owning it and living it. How that bothers me when people put N on their stuff is just drives me
A-N-D.
crazy.
A-N-D.
Yes. All right. So everything will be linked in the show notes. Definitely go follow Erika. And Erika, thank you so
Thank
much for
you
your
for
time. I'm
having
gonna throw
me. So much fun.
let's do some rapid fire questions. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
That's right, girl. Every day, all day, every day. Summer or winter?
Ooh, I would say winter, honestly.
Ooh.
I like a
That's
good
because you
fire.
live in Atlanta.
Yeah, probably so.
It's
I
my
like a good
no.
fire and just cozy in a little cabin. That's my jam.
Yes, no, southern winter is about as winter as I can get.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
like,
don't do
oh,
New York winter at all. Like, no, thank you.
no, no, and no. My husband went to school in Wisconsin, and I was like, that sounds like a nightmare. He'd be like,
Yeah.
it's snow 6 months a year. Okay. Netflix or podcasts? I think I know the answer.
Ooh, in this season, honestly, podcasts.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah,
Because I ain't got time to be sitting watching Netflix unless
no,
there's a good murder show.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have time. All right, and then mountains or beach?
Mountains, believe it or not.
Mountains.
Yeah.
All right, I love you, but we are totally different. We're totally we're complementary. That's what we are.
Yes, yes,
Mountains mountains freak me out too.
yes.
But oh my gosh, seriously, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for
Aw,
giving us an hour of your time. I
yes.
appreciate it.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank
And
you so much.
yes, and go ahead, go follow Erika, go buy your investment properties. She will get you going. And her
Yes,
conference, look up her conference. I'm telling you, the website for the conference will get you fired up. I'm telling you. So
yes. Get you excited.
anyway, yes. All right. Well, thank you, Erika. I hope
Thank
you have
you.
the best rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
right. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Real Estate Coffee Talk. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can get that information right in the show notes. Be sure to tune in next week for another new episode. And until then, keep your dreams big and your mugs full. See you next week.